have families, right? There's the ones that we didn't choose, right? There's the ones that we do choose along the way. There's ones that we choose to make more family with, right? So when it comes to family, it comes in all shapes and sizes. Some of you may be closer. You consider certain friends that you have, maybe you've had for a long time, as even closer than any family that you have, and they are your family. Some of you, Vegas is one of those cities where you get a lot of people from a lot of different places, and they have to kind of recreate family. Sometimes we call that community, but what they're really doing is trying to recreate family in a new place because their family of origin is somewhere else, and we all need that. We need those other people in our life, and so we all have family of some sort, and I'm willing to bet at some level, at some point, at some time, families get messy, right? Your family gets messy, and a lot of times we come to church, and what people in church world want to do sometimes is give this really idealistic picture of certain things, and family is one of those. But I'll tell you what, and I'll challenge you to do it. You start reading the Bible, but you are not going to find picture-perfect families. Matter of fact, you're going to find some pretty screwed up families. You're going to probably like see some Jerry Springer style families. You're going to see families in the Bible that make you go, I'm really glad for my family. I mean, the first family, like one of the brothers killed the other brother. That hasn't happened in my family. It's been close, but it's never happened. And if you look at just the nation of Israel that started off as this family, and they're this family nation, and you see this throughout the Hebrew Scriptures, what a lot of people call the Old Testament, and you don't see this really functional, idealistic view of family. You see some pretty messed up family structures. As a matter of fact, there was a king of Israel named David, and a lot of people like to highlight David as this really spectacular person, right? He killed Goliath, right? You're gonna even hear today, you're gonna hear about these David and Goliath stories, right, in sports. But David had a pretty messed up family. I mean, he had a really messed up family. As a matter of fact, he himself cheated on his wife and had an affair and was adulterous, and then had the other woman's husband killed and abused his power in that way. And then he even had his daughter Tamar was raped by her half brother. Like that's not a clean, squeaky clean family. Like you look in the Bible and you think to see these are the idealistic pictures, but no, these are the families that we're told about in the story of God in these ancient texts. I mean, even Jesus, around here, we like to talk a lot about Jesus. Even Jesus in his family at this time, like a lot of us, like we look back and again, we idealize the Christmas story, but Jesus would have in his own hometown been known as a bastard child. I mean, he wouldn't have had a good reputation. His family, his mom would not have had a good reputation. His family would have had a bad reputation. It's not the squeaky clean things that we think we're going to find maybe in the story of the Bible. But God uses real families to demonstrate divine redemption. God uses real families to demonstrate divine redemption. And one of my favorite authors and speakers on matters of family, and he started this thing called the Rethink Group, and they resource not just churches as it relates to families, but they resource all kinds of organizations and schools as it relates to family matters. He says it this way. He says, never buy into the myth that your family has to be picture perfect. Because God doesn't use perfect pictures. He uses broken people. And maybe you feel that. Like when it comes to your family, when it comes to your relationships, and that the closest relationships in your family of origin, you think to yourself, this isn't pristine, this isn't beautiful. And maybe you think to yourself, we're so broken, we're beyond use. But that's exactly what God does. He does this unexpected thing, and in his love and in his grace. And think about this. None of us really likes stories where everything's perfect. Right? Where this person just always wins. They didn't have to overcome anything. Everything was great. You just don't see that story told in very many movies or in very many books, right? There's this conflict. There's this brokenness. There's this thing that the hero or the heroine of the story has to overcome. And they have these mentors and people that have to come in and help them. But there is always this conflict. Why? Because then there's redemption. right? Then there's the thing, and we all look at it and go, yeah, that's me. That's my story. And here's what I want to talk about. If we talk about the series, Family Portrait, it's this right here. Families don't need a better picture, they need a bigger story. Families don't need a better picture. Maybe you're concerned about the way your family looks to the outside world. Maybe you're concerned about the way your marriage looks to the outside world. But what God is doing is using broken things to tell a story of divine redemption and restoration. And so our families don't need to have this picture of perfect family. Maybe you remember, did you have Olin Mills where you were? Anybody remember that? We had this place that we would go to, and we hated it as kids. But sometimes my grandma would make us go, sometimes my mom would make us go. And we had these family pictures in front of this thing that would pull it down, and it looked like we were in a forest. I'm not sure why we were in a forest. We didn't go hiking as a family ever. Or maybe they pulled something down that went with our denim on denim that mom had us in for some reason in the 90s, this Canadian tuxedo. And that's the picture that gets put up, and you have this. But we all know what was going on before they actually snapped the picture. The photographer and the parents were yelling at the kids to just do, for a second, hold it. Just hold your pose, do what is right. Don't thump your brother in the ear, stop yelling. And it was this big, messy thing that you wanted to just capture this perfect picture, in a second. If you just hold it for a second, we can fool everyone into thinking that our family has no problems. One of the things, one of my favorite episodes of Modern Family happened early on. They're trying to get this picture-perfect family portrait, and it all turns literally to mud as the sprinklers come on, and they start a big mud fight, and they're all wearing white. And it shows this beautiful picture of, you may want your family portrait, you may want the picture of who you are and who your family is to be picture-perfect and idealistic, but it's not, and that's okay because God uses broken things to tell his story of redemption and restoration. And God wants to use you and your family and your mess. And it is his grace and it is his love that does that. When I learned this, it reshaped my perspective of family. And I'll say this. The greatest illustration of this comes from a Hebrew prophet who, in my mind, is tasked with one of the most insane things you can imagine. God, right? When you hear these idealistic things of God and what God wants for your life, what God wanted for his life was this very messy thing. And now prophets were this. So here's prophet. Prophets weren't quite like pastors, okay? There may be a little crossover. You're giving a message from God. But prophets, especially in this time, they were the fringe people. They were the people that people didn't like because they were calling out the injustices of things that were going on in their world. They were calling out the injustice of the leadership of their nation and other nations. They were calling out the injustices of the religious elites. So they were not always well liked. If you read the stories of the prophets, they had rough lives. They were on the fringe of society. They were always running for their life because they had not nice things to say to people in power. And you may know there's some modern day prophets, right? Because you go on Twitter, there's some people out there saying some things. They're trying to call out the injustices, and I think all of us should be that a little bit. But they were always given a message from God. Here's what I want you to tell the people. And this guy, Hosea, gets this message from God that I would be like, wait, what? You talk about being on the fringe of society. Listen to this story. It says, when the Lord first began speaking to Israel through Hosea, he said to him, go and marry a prostitute. So some translations will say a promiscuous woman or a woman of promiscuity. But it's the idea, go and marry a woman that is sexually immoral. And kind of like people, you'll know this, right, by the life that she lives. So sometimes we have this idealistic thing that even God has, this plan that God has for our lives. What he had for Hosea's life was, I want you to go marry a prostitute. But there's a reason. So that some of her children will be conceived in prostitution. You're going to have some children. Some of them will be conceived by you, but some of them will be conceived in her promiscuity, in her prostitution. She will have kids. This will illustrate, right? This is going to tell a story. Here's what it's going to tell. How Israel has acted like a prostitute by turning against the Lord and worshiping other gods. God was saying this, Hosea, I want you to marry someone who is going to cheat on you because my people that I'm in a relationship with and have this unique relationship in this point in history with are cheating on me. And I want your family to be a picture of what's going on. Wow. I'd be like, no, I'm good, God. Thanks. Because to me, he's asking, I want you to go and I want you to get the messiest possible family situation you can imagine. And you know it's going to happen, and that's why I want you to do it. Because you're going to be a picture of what's going on. Now, what happens after this is we're going to meet some of Hosea's kids. Again, some that are his and some that are in prostitution. And the first one, he gives them certain names. The first one is Jezreel. Okay, which means God plants, but there was a place called Jezreel, and there was this heinous act of violence by one of God's own people that he had called to lead. There was this heinous act of violence, and so everyone knew this place as this place of an atrocity, and so we're going to name our first kid, after this place of violence and atrocity. And God said, that's what I want you to name the first kid. Okay? And then, and that one was Hosea's son, but then the next two we're going to see are conceived in promiscuity. And the next one is Lo Ruchama, which means not loved. I want you to name your kid, and your second kid's going to be named not loved. Okay? Just in case that kid's not sure how it's going to feel about its life, we're just going to give it the name not loved. And then the next one, Lo Ami, means not my people. So I want you to, it's like not loved and not my people. That's what I want you to. Why? Because your family's being this picture of this bigger thing that's happening. And I want people to see your family and your kids named not loved and not my people. I mean, it just gets messy. And then we see Hosea begin to write down. This may have actually been a speech that he gives, and he's gonna really wax poetic here. He's gonna give this story, this narration of this wife who has been promiscuous. And anyone hearing this would go, yeah, he's probably talking about like his own wife. But it was actually this message from God about this type of relationship, because we believe that God is relational. And so he tells the story, and it's of this wife who repeatedly cheats on her husband. And so the husband banishes her and takes her away into the desert and puts her in a place where she's basically trapped and she's discarded and she's forsaken and left alone. And he's saying that this is the message of God, but this is what Israel is. And we do know that Israel found itself in exile, out of its home country, and in exile. We find that there were people, there's stories written like in Daniel, where they are literally assimilated into these new cultures where they are exiled and where they are taken to. And he tells the story of this woman that is cast out, discarded, left alone, and forsaken. And it seems pretty dark and pretty glim. But God turns the story around and talks about the rescue of this woman. She's not going to stay out there forever. As a matter of fact, this woman that was discarded and forsaken is now going to be reclaimed, loved, and forgiven. And it's really a beautiful story. It's this thing that you're like, I can see someone feeling this way about their spouse who has cheated on them repeatedly. And not wanting to be with them, wanting to push them out, wishing bad for them. But then we see the story of, but that's not the way it's going to stay. We're going to go reclaim and restore and forgive and love. And we see this beautiful, and again, this is all a picture of God's relationship to his people, that at this time he had this special relationship with Israel. And the New Testament, the New Covenant, the writers post-Jesus say that we've actually been grafted into this story. So we can even see ourselves in this story. And so we see that there's this cheating wife that's brought back in, and it says that God's going to love, going to restore, and it's going to be this beautiful thing. And then we come to Hosea 3. Again, Hosea is not just telling the story, he's living the story. And I think we can learn a lot about how to put ourselves in God's story. It says this in chapter 3. Then the Lord said to me, go and love your wife again, even though she commits adultery with another lover. And this will illustrate. And we illustrated one thing, now we're going to illustrate this new thing. That the Lord still loves Israel, even though the people had turned to other gods and loved to worship them. He said, they're still my people. God still loves them. And I want you to illustrate this by taking this messed up family situation you have. She's in prostitution, and I want you to go and I want you to love her again. I want you to show love to this person. When we put God, ourselves in the story of God, we have to choose love. And then that's one of the most difficult things you can imagine, especially when thinking about your messed up family. I mean, when I think about this, I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. It's real difficult. Imagine Hosea. I want you to go show love to this woman. Why? Because God is saying, I don't forsake my people. They're not all alone. They're not out there forever and left alone. Why? Because I love them. And my love transcends and includes the hurt that they've shown me. Wow. Let's continue. It says, so I bought her back. Remember, she's in prostitution. Even though he was technically, at this time, like he could have claimed her as his possession because they were already married. But instead of doing that, instead of claiming his right, he redeems her by actually buying her off of the prostitution auction block. So I bought her back for 15 pieces of silver and 5 bushels of barley and a measure of wine. But we see, if you want to put yourself in God's story, you got to choose to sacrifice. And choose to sacrifice. These are choices that we make. It's not based on how we feel. It is based on what is right. And what I believe God is calling me to. In this situation, God was very clear. You're going to illustrate my story. You're going to illustrate my relationship with your relationship. So you got to choose to love. You got to choose to sacrifice. And around here, we talk about it a lot. Right? Unity requires love. Love requires sacrifice. And sacrifice requires humility. And that is tough. But it goes further. Then I said to her, you must live in my house for many days. So he's bought her back off the auction block. You're going to live in my house for many days and stop your prostitution. During this time, you will not have sexual relations with anyone, not even me. Not even me, your husband. We're going to purge you of this. We're going to work through this. This shows, again, demonstrates, it's telling God's story that Israel would go a long time without a king or prince, and without sacrifices, sacred pillars, priests, or even idols. And I'll tell you this, it was about around 70 AD that the temple was destroyed, and pretty much the Jewish system of these things that he's talking about were completely destroyed, and they've been without in an organized way ever since. He said, but afterward, the people will return and devote themselves to the Lord their God and to David's descendant, their king, which we believe, you look into the New Testament and the Gospels, that this person that he's talking about is Jesus. That one day, these people that have this special, unique relationship with God, known as the Israelites, or the Hebrew people, the Jewish nation, will come back and they will devote themselves to Jesus. And again, we are grafted into this. In the last days, they will tremble in awe of the Lord and of his goodness. Wait. They're going to tremble in awe of the Lord and his goodness, not his wrath, not his power even. They're going to tremble in awe of, they're going to devote themselves. Why? Because of his goodness. Look at the last thing we're going to do. We got to choose to restore. And this shows our goodness, our kindness, and the kindness of God when we restore a relationship. God's punishment, his correction that we see in this story, is always restorative and never retributive. It's always about bringing back people to himself, not punishing people and casting them away. It is always restorative, never retributive. Some of us believe that God is out to get us, but he's out to love us. And when we can believe that, it changes everything. Not about just the way that we view God, but the way we view our own life and our own mess and our own families. What was about how your family looks can change. It becomes about how your family loves. I think I left the word out there. I apologize. What was about how your family looks becomes about how your family loves. Because how we love, when we love, we point others to the source of love. When we forgive, we point others to the source of forgiveness. And when we restore relationships, we point others to the source of redemption and restoration, which we believe is the restoration of all things. We talked about it all last month. That's this 30,000-foot view, but in our families, right now, there are opportunities to love and sacrifice and restore and be a picture of and tell the story of and demonstrate God's love and sacrifice and restoration for us. I mean, doesn't that change everything? Doesn't that move us from a better picture to a bigger story? And that begins to change the way we view every conflict and altercation. It begins to change the way we view even the very nature of things like marriage and family and children and the way we relate to our kin. Changes everything. And my hope is that as we go throughout this series, that we will begin to shift our perspective on things. And we're going to talk about marriage and sexuality, and we're going to talk about how families fight and how families can fight well. Because you're going to fight. So let's fight for the right things the right way. And we're going to talk about that. And I think that each and every one of these discussions are going to be massively important and practical to each and every one of us. Because they're going to talk about how we can be a part of this bigger story and not just pursue this picture perfect life. But if we all admit, it never works out and never